Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about the latest Age of Mythology Retold update. Plenty of changes, and some of them quite substantial in terms of how they are going to affect the multiplayer meta, as well as campaign changes, interestingly enough. So if we scroll down over here, we have various performance bug fixes, all these kind of things that are resolved with this patch. There's still things that they can still improve with respect to it. One interesting thing, Winter VFX will no longer spawn on allied or neutral town centers. That's interesting because one of the problems with Winter from a graphics performance perspective is that it would really tank the performance potentially. And that's on a system like mine. I can't imagine how it is for people with weaker systems. Though, to be fair, the game is fairly well optimized. I'm running it with ray tracing, so just keep that in mind. Various UI fixes, all that kind of stuff. But let's talk about some very, very important things. There are some changes and some bugs, like, for instance, with Centaurs, Chimeras, similar units, target armor and damage bonuses no longer persist to all units affected by area persistent damage. Interesting decision over there. In terms of the campaign, Servant of Kronos pin in the campaign menu now appears in its correct location for the prologue. Visual minor polish adjustments. I haven't checked the campaign to see what it is, but Mission 5, Mission 6, 7, 9, 12, 15, 16, 17, there's a lot of things that have been updated over here. Really curious to see how that is going to play out. Interesting with the new Atlantis campaign mission. If I'm not mistaken, mission 10 is Rampage, right? Because we have 12 missions, so that would make sense. Mythical Battle God Pack map. Okay. So various updates across the board for quite a lot of missions and campaign. I wonder how substantial they are. And hopefully some of the missions that were pretty annoying to deal with have been updated. But I have to check in. You know, there's a lot of stuff over there to check in. In terms of balance, there are various substantial balance over here changes. So one of the more substantial one is with the Greek Pantheon, favor rate formula. Greeks no longer earn a ridiculous amount of favor. Basically, what this is doing is that the more villagers you have on a temple, the less favor you're going to earn. So, or rather, the more villagers you have getting favor, you do suffer a penalty. So you can't just assign a ridiculous number of villagers and earn a ridiculous amount of favor for god powers and myth units. That is very good because certainly some of the Greeks, or one particular Greek, Poseidon, needed that. Though I'm not quite sure if they changed anything to address the issues that, you know, people are having with Poseidon. To be fair, Poseidon does have his weaknesses. So now lore does work as a granary, so you do have granary upgrades available from that. Makes sense, right? You don't want to build a granary just for the sake of getting upgrades when you already have one with the lure god power. Aphrodite Curse has been nerfed. People were saying that it was too powerful. It's only been reduced by 50 total unit resource value, but still, I guess they're trying to see how that's going to play out. And keep in mind, they obviously have statistics about how all of this plays out in multiplayer games. Thracian Horses has been buffed from 20% to 30%. How do I feel about that? Well, it is a buff. They buffed Poseidon. To be fair, though, on that subject, Thracian Horses didn't really feel that useful. I'm not sure if it still is. It is a benefit overall to get that lifesteal ability, and now it's more powerful. The power of Poseidon doesn't come from Thracian Horses. It comes from a bunch of things associated with Hermes, and also Poseidon's inherent benefits. Centaurs have been nerfed, so special attack bonus damage versus heroes reduced from 0.5 to 0.25. So they're getting a nerf. They're getting a 2 favor cost increase, and because Greeks generate less favor, that is an effective nerf for Hermes. Archaic Age heroes, Jason, Ajax, Physia, suggested as follows. So they train faster now. They do more damage against myth units, but they have been nerfed in terms of their HP. The way I see it is they're less useful against human soldiers, they're more useful, or rather about the same against myth units. They do more damage, but they die more quickly, so that is probably a good choice, because those Archaic Age heroes could be really ridiculous against against human soldiers. Like, forget myth units, against human soldiers, they could absolutely be ridiculous. But you can get them back faster if you want to. The big substantial change over here is they have buffed Ra. So now he has an additional benefit of berry bushes gathered 25% faster. This means that his villagers are gathering berries as fast as hunts. So the significant benefit over here, beyond the fact that you have an early game benefit, of course, it's not really that you're going to gather a resource faster. It means you're going to be able to gather a resource safer, and still maintain the same rate, because huntables are the best resource generation for food, and food is a significant bottleneck early on. With this, you will be able to use those berries as fast as hunts, which makes them more useful, which means Ra has more capabilities. I'm not sure how powerful this is. I've played the game as Ra, like one of the first things I did after getting the patch, played the game as Ra. I don't think it's necessarily doing enough. Although it has to be said, you do start with a hunt, you do start with some herdables right next to your initial town centers. You start with hunt, herdables, and berries. What it means for Ra is he's going to run out of that initial food slower. It doesn't compare to Odin's hunt benefit, that we'll get to him in just a second, because Odin's gathering food faster. So I feel like Ra is still going to suffer. And also, the problem with Ra is his minor god choices aren't particularly great. Like, you have a guy who's supposed to focus on priests, and empowering it doesn't quite work out, I feel, from that perspective. Then, you have Isis getting a nerf over there, a very small nerf over there with the Flood of the Nile. Cost increase from 5 favor to 8 favor, so you have to pay more favor for that initial trickle of food. We have a buff, I suppose you could view it, for Fa. So heal rate improvement has been decreased from 100% to 50% for Electrum bullets, but slingers now do 1 divine damage. The cost has been increased, but 1 divine damage is not something to ignore, I would dare say. Anubis, now with Plagues of Serpents, they've been nerfed at sea. Sobek, Heifer, Locust Worm is now larger, wider, more possible to damage more units. That does make it useful, so especially if you have bigger fights, this can help you out with respect to that. Myth units, rocks can patrol now. The laser crocs bonus damage versus myth units increased. So these things could already be ridiculous, but now they're even more ridiculous against myth units. This can be really useful if you're dealing with a significant number of myth units, because this may sound surprising, but Ra's priests are not particularly great against myth units. That is a problem that you're going to have to deal with. So you can instead use the laser crocs to deal with enemy myth units, especially if you have a decent amount of them. And scarabs now do extra crush damage. Monuments to Soldier the cost has been increased, so that you can't just get it as quickly. You do have to invest more into that. How do I feel overall about the Egyptian ones? Well, I think Fa got a bit more useful, even if, it's increased from 10 favor to 15 favor, but favor is not really a significant issue for the Egyptians. You do have to pay a bit more. Ra is in a better position, but I feel like we need more substantial changes from the developers. Now, with respect to that, especially like more minor god choices, more benefits, maybe more inherent benefits, all that kind of stuff, or changes to how those benefits work. With the Norse Pantheon, Berserker spamming has been nerfed, so it's been increased from 30 gold to 20 food and 30 gold for villagers. So you don't just have to pay gold, you have to pay food as well. For dwarves, it's been increased from 20 food to 30 food and 10 gold. Okay, that is a nerf, certainly needed, because Odin is dominating, Loki is dominating. Would have been nice to nerf Poseidon, I gotta say. The Great Hunt has had its maximum food created from 800 to 600, which is gonna affect all other ages as well, I imagine, right? Because it's the scalability aspect. Raven Scout line of sight for those free Raven Scouts has been reduced, but they do gain 4 line of sight per age up. So they're less useful early on, which is, yeah, important. I think these are the kind of changes that they should be making more. Like having certain god powers, certain upgrades, certain units that might get better as you age up. That would incentivize people to not just, you know, rush in H2 or H3. Though then you run the problem of people just rushing to H3, for instance, to get that benefit. Loki, substantial nerf over here, because his villagers and dwarves can't convert to Berserker for free anymore, but he still has a 50% cost reduction. So it's still a viable tactic, just not as ridiculous as before. And just a VFX fix for Vidar. Atlanteans, you get 50 more wood from the beginning. That can be pretty important. Gaia, who is doing pretty poorly in multiplayer, she's got economic guild upgrades, cost reduction increase from 35% to minus 40%. The building cost for the economic guild has been reduced by 40%. It should have, but it wasn't working. And Gaia, lush maximum radius increased from 20 to 24. And then you get Carnivora, like fixed initial kill ships instantly. And the water is like Carnivora hack damage increased by 10, Pierce armor increased by 10%. Prometheus has been nerfed, so Promethean and Promethean offspring hit point improvement increased from 30% to 20%. I mean, you had the rank 1 player using Prometheans, just rushing for them, rushing as Cronus, and he used that tactic to get rank 1. Poseidon's Secret now also reduces the cost of heroizing cavalry units, so that's a nice benefit for Freya. The tree now also spawns 2 dryads each. The first 2 casts are free, so that is a boost, a buff of for the dryads. Dryads are in a decent enough spot, by the way, and Freya is a really good choice over there. Hyperion, he now also gives 10% HP to heroes, pretty nice. Chaos, cost increase from 50 to 60. Cooldown has also been increased. Leto, cooldown reduced from 2 minutes to 1.5 minutes. And Atlas sucks in units faster with Implode. Okay? Myth units. Prometheans, again, have been nerfed. They cost more food, so you can't just rush them as much as you did before. They were a bit too strong. They were very weak initially in the previous version of the game. Then they became too strong. Again, just a multiplayer balancing situation. There's a reason Kronos does the best out of all the Atlantean gods. So you can view this as a nerf to Kronos, if you will, or rather Kronos' rush tactics. The Lampades from Hecate, they've gotten a buff, if you will. They now do 24 Pierce and 20 Divine. Whew, 20 Divine, ignoring armor values. And also attack range increased from 10 to 12. And then Atlantean heroes, pretty important aspect. All Atlantean heroes are now going to do more damage versus myth units. So Oracles, Catapultes, Turma, Marmillo, Cantarius, Destroyer, Fanatics, they've all gotten buffed. Well, except Arcus. And the Chiral Ballista, like those two haven't gotten buffed, but everyone else has gotten buffed. So I guess they didn't want to really buff the longer range heroes, because, you know, their range is already a benefit, but they did buff the melee heroes, or the shorter range. Arcus movement speed has been increased. Oracle heroes are no longer found selected with Define Select Hero hotkeys. Okay. And the economic guild has been reduced in cost. Then manors can be constructed faster and they are more durable. Okay. So overall, pretty solid changes over there. Though I would wish for more substantial updates. Like, it might seem like there's a lot, to be sure, but I think, like, I'd say the most substantial aspect is the raw benefit, but I would like to see more, personally, because there's a lot of things. But maybe they're waiting for more data to be collected. Maybe they want to, you know, just do a bunch of smaller and smaller changes, or just a bunch of small changes that eventually add up. I'm not sure on what their patching methodology is there, because there are some companies that do very big changes, but they do it slowly. I mean, we've gotten patches pretty quickly from these guys, so hopefully things will improve. Multiplayer, as I've stated, is not in a great place right now. Will this help? I mean, there's nothing done really substantially that stops the freaking frustration of Poseidon. There is a nerf to Odin, to be sure. Less scouting capability, less insane food capability. That is a really nice thing. So you can view it as a nerf for Odin. I'm not sure it's substantial enough, because I think Odin really needs a far more substantial update on that subject. Not necessarily just a nerf, an update to make him less crazy in a lot of ways. But still good in multiplayer, because you don't want to replace one powerful god with another. That would not be balancing from my perspective. Anyway, Costin here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. Stay tuned for more.